And joining me with more, counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway. Good evening, Kellyanne.
Good evening, Janine.
Well, okay, so we were just talking about how the standards seem to be changing depending upon who's on the other end of the investigation. And it seems like guilt and innocence, those are like words of the past, that there are new nuances. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct, which is why words that were beyond the ken of most Americans, not familiar in their everyday lexicon, like collusion, were introduced so that people would somehow get confused and think that that was a really serious presidential crime. First of all, the investigation by Mr. Mueller had nothing to do with guilt or innocence. This was not a criminal prosecution. This was an investigation. And that investigation failed to conclude that the president has committed a crime, anyone in his family, any of his senior advisors. And I will say, as the campaign manager for at the end of the winning part of the campaign, it is a relief, but it also has been a terrible disappointment and a true miscarriage of justice for people to be running around and pretending that any of us would have done that, would have willingly conspired with a foreign agent, in this case Russia, to try to publish damaging information on the woman who lost, who shouldn't have, try to cut corners, cheat, lie, or steal our way to a democratically elected president. They have tried to have an asterisk next to his election, next to his campaign for the 2.5 years since he won. And this really does close the door on all of that. I think also people are attacking Attorney General Barr speciously and really viciously for another reason. It is the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, other, quote, department lawyers, and the Office of Legal Counsel, who all said they could not conclude that the president had in fact done anything to obstruct justice. That's key, because, and that's why they're attacking him. If you don't like the message, you attack the messenger. This is a just result. It's just that those haters and critics don't like the result.
And you know, the interesting thing is that, I mean, there's obstruction, but there's no underlying crime. Assuming there's obstruction, and there is an obstruction.
That's right.
Because they don't have the requisite intent. You're right. They don't have the requisite intent. And you know what? It's so amazing. With Hillary Clinton, she had the intent, and they said she didn't have the intent. I mean, everything is backwards. But you know, one of the things that the president said, which I found so important, is that no other president should ever have to go through this again. Because as I said in my open, no other man could have gone through, man, woman, whatever, president, could face the incoming like he did every day and then deliver for us and watch the people around him pretty much collapse in terms of their ability to respond to what was going on. What say you? How do we stop that?
Correct. No, it's true. And look, the real rebuttal for Donald Trump will be his reelection. The Democrats and their friends in the media have wasted so much time thinking this was the way to get him out of office and really diminish him to the American people. And it's had the opposite effect. The media's numbers, poll numbers, are way down. You've got no lesser souls than Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, and some of the 2020 Democratic presidential field, Janine, saying, oh, no, we're not talking about impeachment. We're not having that conversation right now. They know that there is not a public appetite for more of this, but perhaps there is a public appetite for knowing how this all started in the first place, investigating the investigators. Sure, I can find 22 months and $25 million or so if people are interested in knowing why the fix was in from the beginning, why people were trying to undo Donald Trump's surprise election result beginning practically the day he was elected, why the Obama administration ignored the briefings they received about Russian interference into our elections, about these attempts. They didn't think he'd win. They thought she would win, so nobody bothered to lift a finger. They never took it seriously, but we are taking it seriously. And the other thing I would say to you is, I see some comments in the Mueller report as I was reading it. I've been by Donald Trump's side uninterrupted for 3 years practically now. I have never heard him one time say, this is the end of my candidacy, this is the end of my presidency. I've never heard him utter those words. And we've been in some pretty impossible, tough situations together. That is not the way he speaks. He has weathered some pretty impossible situations that would have broken another man or another woman, perhaps. And all the while giving us the best economy that some of us have ever seen, that this country truly has ever known. He's done all that under this ridiculous, unfair cloud. Imagine what he'll be able to do now that it's over.
Well, and you know what? Couldn't agree with you more. Kellyanne Conway, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Janine.
After the release of the Mueller report, the left-wing media begging Democrats to push impeachment.
So the Democrats have a choice. Are they going to play it safe? Are they going to do what polls would tell you will actually get Donald Trump removed from office in an election? Or will they begin the impeachment proceedings that this Mueller report suggests Donald Trump deserves? He is unfit to be president of the United States, and anybody who suggests otherwise has not read the report.
House Majority Leader, though, Steny Hoyer, saying not so fast, telling CNN, quote, based on what we have seen to date, going forward on impeachment is not worthwhile at this point. Very frankly, there is an election in 18 months, and the American people will make a judgment. Joining me now, House Judiciary Committee member Congressman Matt Gaetz and Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. All right, Congressman Gaetz, I mean, at least someone has some sense in the Democratic Party, but I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to resist the urging by their so-called friends in the mainstream media, and I think it's going to be disastrous for them.
Well, and the real problem is there's a fundamental question in the Democratic Party about who's in charge. You got people like Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and Jerry Nadler who run the institutions of power in the Democratic Party, but the people who actually inspire the base who run the party are AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Ariana Presley. I mean, so you've got a real problem because the people who can set the agendas and set the hearings aren't really the people who drive the energy of the Democratic Party. But you pointed out correctly, there was this weird feedback loop between the media and the Mueller team. I mean, the Mueller report cites the media more than 125 times.
Right.
I don't know how they had time to investigate anything. It seemed like they were spending all their time watching CNN and reading the New York Times.
Right, but remember, there was never any leaking. No, those Mueller people,
this is also
that was airtight. That's my favorite line from this whole thing. They never leaked.
But like in Volume 1, where they conclude that there was no criminal conspiracy with Russia,
right,
the media is referenced at half the rate of Volume 2, where they want to spin up this obstruction theory, where they have to rely heavily on public reporting rather than their own investigative work.
It's kind of like, Sarah, when the FISA application cited the news media that had received the fake news from the people making the FISA application.
Exactly. Well, the left wing or the mainstream or whatever we want to call it media, those who reported all these erroneous lies should be ashamed of themselves, and they should also be embarrassed. They were used, they were stooges for people in the Obama administration that leaked a disinformation campaign that literally targeted the President of the United States. So they were used to target the President, target his family, target the institution, and by the way, Jesse, target the American people. They should be ashamed. That is not their job. Their job is to seek out the facts, report those facts, even if they don't like President Trump.
Yeah, not only were they stooges of the Obama administration, they were stooges of Russia. They delivered exactly what Russia wanted, which was to sow discord and animosity and make everybody question the integrity of our democratic institutions. And they were somewhat successful in doing that. Now, we're talking about next steps, Congressman. Personally, I don't think little Jerry Nadler has the intelligence, the charisma,
little, by the way,
right, or is articulate enough to take this torch from Mueller and run it across the impeachment finish line. He doesn't have the credibility. He's not moderate enough, and I don't think he could sell a not guilty attempted obstruction charge the way you can sell collusion. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely right. And who in America is going to believe these people? Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler have been lying to the country for 22 months. So what, we're going to start believing them now? And you had a very solid 90s movies reference on the 5. Going after the president on obstruction in this case where he was largely set up with a phony investigation would be like charging Dr. Richard Kimball with 42 counts of trespassing while he was trying to clear his good name in the movie The Fugitive.
Yes.
So, I think that the
I'm
president
so glad
acted
you picked up
appropriately
on my
given the
analogy, because I
circumstances.
make analogies on the 5. I get laughed at by Dana Perino. I'm glad someone thinks they're good. All right, Sarah, we talked about it at the top with Dan about the next steps. I don't think, no matter what is released, I don't think as damning as it could be to the Obama administration, I still don't think, I could be wrong, I still don't think the media is going to fairly and accurately report instances of abuse of power that happened in the last administration.
I certainly hope you're wrong. And the only reason why I say that is because, listen, Jesse, there are going to be numerous investigations, and I don't think they'll be able to walk away from it. Once the information comes out from Michael Horowitz's report, and remember that's a very narrowed scope investigation. It's going to be the FBI and the DOJ. They're going to be looking at malfeasance within both of those agencies in the department. And then we're going to have Barr's investigation, and we also have Huber. So there's going to be multiple investigations. We don't even know, and there may be already be a grand jury impaneled in this investigation. What we've seen is an extraordinary abuse of power. I think the American people are well aware of what's going on here, and I also believe that at some point the media is going to have to take a step back, and they're going to have to assess what they've done, because we have seen the ratings drop on a lot of other competitor stations enormously, and people are going to stop reading those papers if they don't feel that they're being serviced well with the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I think CNN lost like 30 or 40% of its primetime audience last week.
That's right.
Congressman, when you see mainstream media reporters running around in the halls of Congress, you should just whisper to them, no collusion.
Well, they're not off the hook, Jesse. One of the other little nuggets that the Inspector General is working on is the corruption that existed between the media and members of the FBI,
right.
where members of the mainstream media were giving concert passes and athletic tickets and other incentives to people in the FBI to leak to them. So we'll be seeing that even before we see the Inspector General's report on how this fraudulent investigation began. And I think it really informs on what is so wrong here in Washington, where people can tell lies, and then the mainstream media will carry them into millions of living rooms around the country without doing the type of fact-finding that Sarah Carter does, and that really illuminated a lot of the abuses that have been laid bare for the American people.
Sarah, you did a great job. But, you know, now that you mention it, Congressman, I never got bribed with Knicks tickets. You know, I never got any.
No, that's because you're not in the FBI. No, the media was doing the bribing. It was the FBI that was receiving the incentives, and so then you wonder, were people in the FBI giving truthful information, not truthful information? And then you have those very media reports cited in the Mueller report, as if they're the gospel when they clearly are not.
All right.
That's it.
All right, Congressman, Sarah, thank you guys very much. Happy Easter weekend to both of you.
Happy Easter to you.